This is Karen with newclevelandradio.net, and it is time for the Intentionality Gurus with Candace Pollock. And today's theme is systems to support goals. And I just told Candace before we went live, I'm really excited about today's theme because in the past week, I've been talking about habits that they really don't complement us. And we have good habits, we have bad habits. But to break a habit, you have to have some tools. You just can't have a goal that says, I'm going to break this by next week, because how are you going to get there? So I think that's the direction we're going. And if I'm wrong, well, hey, I've been wrong before.
Well, and it's not wrong. It's just it's the direction we're going, right?
Okay,
I mean, like a lot of our conversations.
sure.
We start out with one thing and we end up someplace else, which I love because it's part of the discovery process, kind of a chemical reaction. Alrighty, so we've touched on this topic before, but we're coming at it from a slightly different perspective. And it's, on the heels of New Year's resolutions or whatever people do or don't do. All right, I don't want to suggest that everybody needs to do them. But the point is we can be mindful, be intentional about not working against the grain, so to speak, not, going in the swimming against the current.
Sure.
And this was my brain got fixed on this topic again because I was in a webinar and they were talking about this quote by a British statistician named George Box, who said, all models are wrong, some are useful.
Wow.
Yeah. So what occurs to you when you hear me say that?
Well, whose interpretation is wrong? I
Well,
mean,
he's saying that there will always be a flaw in every model.
well, I think there's a flaw in all of us. So I guess he's right.
Yeah, exactly. And, even Einstein doesn't know, even his models and some of his predictions and so on were flawed, but they were still very useful. And so the idea going into this concept of systems rather than goals, we often focus on the goal and then we don't have a clear mechanism to get there. And,
Right.
we can underestimate how busy life is or our physical abilities or our budget. There's all sorts of things that can inhibit that. And so that kind of can be inherently one of the reasons goal setting is not as successful as it might be. I mean, certainly some people have it dialed in, but most of the population doesn't. Otherwise, everybody would lose that last 10 pounds. They would keep their resolutions, blah, blah, blah.
Exactly.
So, but the thing I love about it is there is no theory, no model that is 100% correct. Thus, the real test of knowledge is not truth, but utility. How useful can the model be to us? So I have a phrase that I use all of the time. Just because you're paranoid doesn't mean someone's not following you. Okay.
Yeah.
So both can be true. So it's the same concept with this systems and goals, and models are not 100% correct. There can always be some element that we just don't have the knowledge for yet, and so on. And so I'm now referring to a James Clear blog from actually 2018. I love James Clear. He's in Worthington, Ohio. At least he was the last time I looked. And he wrote Atomic Habits, and he's just a cool guy and really, really brilliant. I love his blog. And so he says that basically, and this was my jumping off point to revisiting this topic, even Einstein's work was not perfect in all cases. So it means that it may not work in some situations, but it's incredibly useful, not just for increasing understanding of the world, but also for practical purposes. For example, the GPS system used in your phone in your car must take the effects of relativity that Einstein helped develop and into account to deliver accurate directions. Without general relativity, our navigation systems wouldn't be accurate. Okay, so it's the paranoid, you're paranoid, but people are following you, concept. So the idea is James Clear explores, how to make decisions in an imperfect world. I'm not going to cite everything from his article, his blog piece. But when we look at the difference between goals and systems, the goal is, remember lead measures and lag measures? The lead measure, the lag measure is the end result we're seeking, generally the goal. And the lead measure is our actions that are designed or presumably designed to get us there. So in this instance, if we commit to the process and not the goal, we are likely to get to the goal. So if I know that, I don't know, name a goal.
Let's just use losing weight, because everybody
Okay.
attempts to do that.
All right. So the idea is that we could set the goal, and we may have some theories on how we're going to get there. But if we basically identify one or two things that we would reliably do, our system, that are likely to take us there. So for me, it was adhering to shortened food windows. So if I don't eat after a certain time, one, I tend to feel better in the morning with more energy, because there's some science behind some of your lymph glands, clearing some of the whatever in the brain, and I'm less foggy. And if I don't eat until a certain time, I have more energy, and I haven't taken that time, and then feel a little lethargic after eating. And so what that has resulted in is me maintaining a weight with no effort. I'm not losing weight. I didn't do it to lose weight. I was doing it just, I don't know, as an experiment.
Right.
And I happen to like it. So what other ones might you think of?
Wow. So I've always had a tendency to be type A OCD to some extent, things I have to clean all the time.
Mhm.
And, the end result is having a clean, neat house. However, I had to change those habits and almost redefine what I had to do to get there. So like, I don't have to do it all in one day. And that's what I used to do. So now I have steps on how to get to that end result. And truthfully, I'm never going to get to the end result 100%, because there's always going to be something else in the mix.
Yeah, I love it. And I did exactly the same thing, because I, carved out the end of the week, or, the weekend, to do cleaning and so on. And then I had other projects and things I wanted to do, particularly when the weather's good. I'd like to be outside. I don't get to do that a lot, especially after COVID. And so each day there was one particular thing. But like you, not everything was clean all at one time.
Exactly.
Okay. And there's just something about it when it has that nice fresh smell and everything else everywhere, and everything appears to be tidy. I don't necessarily have the motivation to do it all myself, and I don't have somebody to clean. But then what I did is I coupled it with another system, which is I'll reliably put my clothes away when I take them off. I wasn't always really good at that. I would empty the trash on a particular day. So I would collect the trash things on a particular day, and take the recycling out every day, that kind of thing, so that there was less, physical clutter. And they're just little simple steps. And more recently, I realized I need to improve my upper body strength. And so I keep one of those band exerciser things in the kitchen. And while I'm waiting for something to heat up, or, name it, then I'll do reps. And
Okay.
so, those are, rather than me, yes, I'd like to go to the gym more frequently, et cetera, but it's not always going to happen reliably. And then we tend to abandon a goal when we don't do something reliably. But if we can, like BJ Fogg, make it a tiny step, anchor it to something else, and celebrate when we do it, then see how all of these things are kind of coming together.
Absolutely. Absolutely. The sad part is, we are living in a society where we want that immediate fix.
Yep.
And we're seeing it on social media, oh, you can have this immediate fix.
Mhm.
I went through something last week that I was invited to a free seminar. So I took the seminar online, and it was how I could create this dollar figure with my coaching business. And 90% of it was just advertisement. Okay. But what I picked up out of it truly was I have to do it my way, but I can't expect it to happen overnight.
Mhm. Mhm.
And that's what too many of us think, that, oh, I now have my degree or my certificate and I'm going to do XYZ and I'm going to be this, you know, wealthy person or established.
Mhm.
And each step is part of that wealth and establishment. And if we can understand that, getting to the goal is going to be easier rather than thinking, why aren't I there already?
Yeah, I'll never get there, or why aren't I there already? And that's what Clear talks about in his blog piece, that the goal is remote from us when and the lead measures and lag measures, this comes from, prior conversations we've had. The only thing we actually have control over is our lead measure, the action in the moment. And if we can reliably do that, and so, I made the commitment to myself that I would do that upper body exercises just a little bit each day, but in aggregate, it'll add up. And it's certainly a boatload more than I was doing, when I was thinking of, oh, I'm going to go to the gym, and then I wouldn't have time to go to the gym, or, what have you. So in thinking about what you just said about the financial goals, what occurs to you?
That what what I'm realizing, that goal is there, but what's more important to me are the steps that I'm taking. At the end of the day, I can pat myself on the back and say, yeah, you've taken another step.
I
You've got
love it. I love it because you can celebrate in the moment and
Yes.
not at some remote time and
Right.
have it be pass or fail.
Yep.
And the other part, Karen, that stands out for me, you saying that, is um something in the neighborhood of, well, you said the celebration, you can celebrate that, but um getting, the goal is going to be more like a compass point. This is the direction I'm heading in. We may not get it precisely, on the button, and so on, but it's still, a better direction than the one maybe we had been taking.
Well, and the way I got to this thinking, obviously, this podcast over the years has really helped. But I sit and watch other people who keep saying, you know, this is where I want to be. And I look at them and I see that they're not doing anything to get there. They're always talking about, this is where I want to be. And it's like, and I used to do that too. I remember back in probably the early 80s, I kept saying, I really wish I had completed my degree. And my husband said to me at the time, then go back to school and get it. And it was like, no, no, but I kept repeating it over and over again. The day that I finally said it and did something about it, I'll tell you, I just felt like this new person. It's like, why have I been talking about this for almost 20 years? And now I'm going to do it. And then I decided, don't question it, just do it.
Do it, right. Well, and what's really cool about that is, we're not taught how to set goals. I know in some coaching programs that I've been in as a participant, we were taught to set BHAGs, big, hairy, audacious goals. Well, it doesn't do any good to say that I'm going to climb Mount Kilimanjaro if I don't have my physical fitness and so on. I mean, it's actually setting us up for defeat and sending signals to the brain that, okay, this isn't working, and it's futile. So, and I remember years and years ago, I'd hate to admit how many years ago it was, but there were two young women that worked the front desk at a particular agency that I spent a lot of time with and, interacting with at this one agency way back in the day. And one of them, the agency paid for college, and neither one of them had gone to college. And so, when we were chatting, I guess at some point, they both said that they wanted to go to college, and they didn't come from a family background that incentivized college for women. So anyway, somebody had said this to me years ago, and I just passed it on. The time's going to go by anyway. What would you rather have at the end of that time? Would you rather have your college degree, or would you rather be talking about how you wish you had your college degree? And that one of the two that I still see, frequently, we're still friends. Not that I'm not friends with the other one, I just don't see her as often. Um, Regularly comments on because she went on to get 2 degrees and some other advanced training and so on. And she said, that made all the difference. And all I did was pass on something. Apparently, it was a phrase of one of the wives of one of the attorneys that I was talking to at the time. So I just love, remembering the time's going to pass anyway. The only thing we have control of are these incremental tiny steps, a la BJ Fogg, that we can control. And then we can make them fun by celebrating them as we do them.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I mean, and it took me a long time to understand that theory that time's going to pass, but
Yeah.
if I haven't done anything, okay, I'm still sitting here waiting.
Yep.
But what am I waiting for?
Waiting and wanting.
Right. And I know when I went back to school, so the strange part was my youngest son was starting college. My husband had gone back 6 months earlier, and then I did. And somebody said, "Is this a competition?" And my first thought was, no, it's not. But in some ways, we turned it into one because that encouraged all three of us.
Yeah.
And, I don't think there's anything wrong with doing something that fulfills you. And I mean, there were times when my youngest son was saying, I don't want to be in college. I don't like what I'm learning. And I would say, well, you know what? That's how I felt when, I completed 2 years of college.
It could normalize it for him,
Right.
that's just a natural thing that pops up. Mhm.
Exactly. And then once he started taking more of his classes online and he had, as he felt, more control,
Mhm.
he became a better student. And he was a good student in high school, but college was tough sitting in a room of 200 people.
Mm.
And so, but he didn't even realize it, but he saw me taking classes online and he saw how calm and collected I was, and I wasn't rushing, for that assignment to be done because I was working on it continuously.
Mhm.
So, again, because I was doing it continuously, I didn't see the areas to pat myself on the back and say, hey, I've done this.
Mhm.
But when I finally got to that point, it was like, yeah, after each class, why aren't you telling yourself, hey, that was good? And I do that now with every seminar I take. Sometimes I'm going to spend 3 hours online taking a seminar today when I could be doing something else. Well, if I'm going to learn something, let's celebrate it and let's do it.
Yeah, and a couple of things pop into my mind. So the idea of the not celebrating, but what we know from neuroplasticity about how we can train the brain to support, our habits and activities and so on is, even though the event that we would, BJ Fogg recommends celebrating as soon as you complete the action, like in the moment, so to speak.
Right.
And it could be nothing more than a little fist pump to yourself, or I'll say, "Atta girl can," to myself, those kinds of things. But we can know that the science says that if we think of that episode and we feel good about it, we can celebrate it again. So the brain doesn't necessarily know the difference between what has happened, what is happening, and what may happen, because we can live it as if it's happening. That's like a complete oversimplification of the concept. And this is that morbid statistic that humans are the only mammal that commits suicide. And some people push back and say, well, what about lemmings? And what they're doing, they're not committing suicide. They are following their ingrained instinct to migrate west. And if a cliff into an ocean happens to be in their way, well, so be it. But the reason that, as I've read, humans are the only mammal to commit suicide is because we can live the past and we can live the future as if it's happening to us in the present. And so if and it's all releasing stress chemicals or feel good chemicals, if we can use that and leverage it, then we can more easily achieve our goals. Now, it's important, Gabriel Antigen, and I always mispronounce her name, there's an extra N in there, wrote the book Whoop, WOOP. And the idea is that we have a wish that, we want to lose weight, whatever it happens to be. The objective, I'm going to do it in X period of time. And this particular way, we have the objective, or the outcome, I'm sorry, that's the first one, then the objective. And then we have the wish. All right, I'm getting it all confused. Anyway, the long and short of it, it's a formula, and you can go on her website and actually work it out. But then you have, obstacle is the second O. So then we have to anticipate, well, what's going to get in my way? All right, well, I don't have that supply in my house, or I don't have staff, just identify what it is, and then figure out what you can accomplish within the restrictions you have. And then the P stands for plan, and that stands for plan B. So if the obstacle presents itself, how are you anticipate, how am I going to get on the other side of it? So I remember one time you told me about doing the BJ Fogg stuff by doing certain exercises when you turned on the coffee, or when you were making coffee in the morning.
Right.
Okay. And then you said that it wasn't totally engaging. And so then I told you about what I had learned from one of his webinars, is that it has to be the very last action in the sequence. So it isn't just making coffee, it is as soon as you turn the coffee pot on, or whatever, if it's electric, or put it on the stove and turn on the power. So in this context, what stands out for you may be something that you want to accomplish.
Well, the big thing that I really want to accomplish right now is to make sure that I'm not sure this is the goal, but I don't want to keep running in circles like I have in the past.
Mhm.
I want to walk down this path and continue to be able to see those forks in the road.
Mhm.
But there are days that I get up in the morning and I forget basically where I am. I just get up and I just start moving.
Mhm. You're plugging and
my-
plugging, and you're just like in automation mode. Mhm.
Right. And yesterday morning was one of those. This morning, I was very focused on what I'm going to do. And when I'm doing that, I can see those forks in the road. So I know that I'm going to have some choices, and I know some of them are going to be obstacles, and I'm already thinking about, well, how do I get around those? Am I going to jump? Am I going to go the opposite direction?
Mhm.
Or am I just going to face it head on?
Mhm.
So that's where my brain is going today.
Yeah. Well, and then the other things we can think about is I often have visual cues. So for instance, if I think of something that I absolutely have to do the next day, and I'm worried, like in the, hustle and bustle in the morning, that I may forget it, I'll write a word that reminds me of it on my mirror in soap.
Oh,
All right. And then I also have some prompts on my Google Calendar to send me a little note, benchmarks through the day, and where I can just take my, not literal pulse, but my mental pulse, and say, all right, what are you thinking? What are you feeling? So that I'm remembering to, stay in touch with those instincts and so on. So there's lots of ways to do it. I know we've talked about sticky notes before, and I have had, some moments where they were sometimes showing up on the bottom of my shoe. There were so many, and they had kind of fallen off the wall. But there are other ways to address that. It could be a timed note to yourself or myself that just is the word, like, what are you doing? Something or a phrase. What are you doing? Um, what was the last fork you noticed or you didn't see?
Was the last word I noticed?
Yeah, I mean, no, but I
Oh,
mean, those are some of the
right,
prompts that
okay,
we can
yeah,
set ourselves. Whatever is going to remember to keep us on that path, as you said, to notice the forks, rather than getting caught up in the din of the day. Certainly in my day job, I don't always have control over other people's needs, and I just have to go into it. It's not like an emergency room. I'm not going to put it on the same scale, but emotionally for my clients, it is. And
sure.
sometimes the window is quickly closing. We just have a very narrow time opportunity to address things, and then it's too late. So forget anything else I might have had planned. So what are the kinds of things that kind of tend to get in your way besides just getting caught up in the day?
You know,
Just that.
you know, and the interesting part is for anybody who's out there listening, and if you have a close connection with your family can derail you.
Mhm,
And, last week, as you personally know, I was totally derailed for a couple of days.
mhm,
And it wasn't until maybe the third day that um, I looked at blank sticky notes on my desk,
mhm.
and I did write some words on there. Okay. And one was, it was two words. It says, "You can't." And I had to remember that I couldn't take away the pain somebody else was feeling.
Oh,
Okay. There were no words I could
you
use.
would if you could, but you
Yeah.
can't.
And so I had to remind myself of that. And when this person would call me, I basically was silent on the phone.
Mhm.
And um, that really was the breaking point for them to say, wow, like if you're not going to talk to me, maybe I need to make some changes. And I still didn't say anything. But within 24 hours, they started making their own changes. And so I realized I couldn't do anything for them, but I did something for them by remaining silent.
Love it, love it, love it. Because, as much as, our hearts want to help and so on, sometimes only the other person is in a position to make it different. And we can't force them down the path and force them on a fork. It just never works.
Yeah.
And it's a boundaries issue. What are we capable of doing?
Well,
And
and I constantly hear my husband saying, why does so and so do that? And I look at him and it's like, so why do you do what you do? You know, and he'll say, well, no, it's not the same. And it's, but it is for them. Okay. They do that
ah,
because what, whatever, as we've talked about, whatever that has been inbred in them, whatever, they're going through at the present time and the influences. I said, so you may not like what they're doing, but it's not your choice that they should do something different.
yeah.
And he's getting much better at it. Because he sees that, you know, I was always the fixer, and the only way that I fix things now is like, you know, think about it yourself. I'm going to sit here quietly. And I have to tell you that it's a very difficult thing to do.
Oh, totally. Well, I had a family member that was going through something, and the subtext of my job description is fixer, it's supposed to problem solve. And I was really angsting. And even, on weekends and stuff where I was supposed to be rejuvenating, I was just kind of like, it was constantly in the forefront of my thoughts. And finally, my husband, who was a very, very wise man, said to me, "Dear, you have to watch the TV screen. You can't climb into the TV set or the computer and rearrange the script. You just have to say, oh, what is Knucklehead doing there? Or, whatever. You can comment on it in your, not to them, but to yourself. But we're powerless to watch the program." So, and just that idea that I have to separate it, you know, it's not the way I would do it necessarily in their situation, but I'm not them. And they have different motivations. They haven't seen the forks in the road we have, and we haven't seen the forks in the road they've had.
Right.
So that to me, I use that reference just in my own life on a regular basis.
Well, this has been extremely interesting, especially since I've been going down this path the last couple weeks. So thank you very much, and we will have you back again in 2 weeks because
Right.
that's our schedule.
Yeah, looking forward to it. Thank you,
All
Karen.
right. Have a
Right.
great day.
You too.
Bye-bye now.